She was just a little girl, an easy target, but they didn't see the German shepherd lying silently nearby, and they definitely didn't know he was trained to take down grown men in seconds. By the time they realized their mistake, it was already too late. It was the kind of Saturday afternoon that people in the small town of Clearwater, Oregon, took for granted. The sun was out, the breeze was soft, and the distant sound of lawnmowers and kids' laughter drifted lazily through the air. On Elmwood Street, neighbors trimmed hedges, grilled burgers, and waved to passing joggers like they always did. It was the kind of peaceful day that felt untouchable, safe. But peace is strange. It's quiet until it isn't. 9-year-old Emily Parker had just returned from a sleepover at her best friend Ava's house 3 doors down. She wore bright pink sneakers, a glittery unicorn shirt, and a face streaked with sleepover paint. Her backpack, still half-zipped and stuffed with crayons, was swinging from one shoulder as she climbed the porch steps of her home. She called out, "Mom, Dad, I'm back," and dropped her bag by the door, not waiting for a reply. The house was quiet. Her mom was working the late shift at the hospital, and her dad, Officer Daniel Parker, had just gotten home from a night patrol and was upstairs catching a few hours of sleep. Emily knew not to wake him. She tiptoed past the hallway, down the back steps, and out into the yard. That's where Max was. Max, massive, majestic, silent, a retired K9 German shepherd, thick-necked and broad-chested, with a gaze that could chill grown men and a heart that melted only for Emily. She spotted him immediately, sitting at attention beneath the shade of the old maple tree, ears perked, tail thumping once as she approached. "Hi, Maxie," she chirped, hugging his neck. Max didn't move much, just leaned into her softly. His eyes were fixed on the gate. Emily plopped down onto the grass and began pulling toys from a box. A ball, a plastic frisbee, a jump rope that was mysteriously missing one handle. But Max didn't play. His body was still, too still. "Max?" she asked, tilting her head. He wasn't sick, wasn't lazy. Max had energy. Even after retiring, he patrolled the backyard like it was part of his shift. He chased squirrels. He barked at the mailman. But today, he didn't bark. He watched. Emily shrugged, deciding it was nothing, and skipped toward the garden box. "I'm gonna find my rope," she sang, disappearing behind the bushes. Max followed, but slowly. His ears were twitching, nose flaring, head lowered just slightly. He growled, almost silently, one short, deep rumble in his chest. Then again, and again. Emily didn't hear it, but someone else might have. Down the street, almost a full block away, the sound of 3 engines broke through the afternoon calm. Low, deep, throaty, motorcycles, loud enough to make a few heads turn, but not loud enough, yet, to seem alarming. They rolled slowly past houses, not roaring, coasting, predatory, like they were watching. The men riding them wore black leather jackets, dark jeans, and helmets with full visors that hid their faces. One had a red skull decal on the back. Another had a jagged scar on his neck that poked out from under the helmet strap. They didn't look like tourists. They didn't look lost. Clearwater had never seen them before, but other towns had. For the past 2 weeks, there had been whispers across small Oregon communities about a group of bikers showing up unannounced, lurking near homes, disappearing after strange incidents. A broken garage here, a stolen toolbox there. One woman claimed they tried to force her front door open before her husband came downstairs with a bat, but no one had been caught. No one had proof. Until today, as they rolled down Elmwood Street, the men slowed. The lead biker raised a hand and pointed at the Parker home, at the backyard, at Emily. She didn't see them. She was still crouched by the hydrangeas, tugging at a rope caught in the branches. Her blonde ponytail bounced with each movement. Max saw them, his ears pinned back, his tail dropped. He stood, not like a playful dog, but like a soldier who just spotted a threat. He growled again, louder. One of the bikers, Red Skull, cut his engine. The sound died. The others followed suit. 3 bikes, 3 men, silence. They stayed there for a few seconds, engines off, watching. Then the lead rider stepped off. He was tall, wiry, with heavy boots and black gloves. His jacket had a rip along the shoulder and grease stains on the chest. He didn't head toward the front door. He walked along the fence, deliberately, calculated. Max moved, slowly, deliberately. He didn't bark, not yet. Emily finally yanked the jump rope free and smiled. "Got it," she squealed. Spinning around, she saw him, the man, already at the gate. For a second, she thought maybe he was someone her dad worked with, maybe a neighbor. But the way he moved, silent, confident, made her skin prickle. She took a step back. Max stepped forward. The man said nothing, Didn't knock, didn't call out. He reached for the latch and unhooked it. The gate swung open. Emily's voice caught in her throat. "Max!" The dog growled, low and sharp. The man stepped inside. He didn't even flinch at the growl. He took one long look at Max and smiled. That smile, that was the first moment Emily felt true fear. Max barked, loud and sudden. It echoed off the fences, startling birds from a tree. Across the street, old Mrs. Halvorson looked up from her gardening. She squinted, saw a man she didn't recognize entering the Parker yard. She frowned and stepped back into her house. Inside, a baby monitor in the kitchen, left on from Emily's little cousin's recent visit, caught the sound of Max's bark and transmitted it upstairs to Officer Daniel Parker's phone. He stirred slightly in bed. Meanwhile, outside, Emily clutched the jump rope like it could protect her. Max was now between her and the stranger, teeth bared. "You'd better call him off," the man said, voice low. "I don't want to hurt him." Max took another step forward. The man laughed. "I see what you're doing," he said. "You think that dog's gonna stop me?" Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. She was frozen, trembling. Behind the man, two more figures appeared. The other bikers. They were now standing at the fence line. One reached into his pocket. Max barked again, inching forward, his body lowered, like a spring ready to explode. Then the first man lunged, not at Max, at Emily. And that was the last mistake he'd ever make. Max surged forward with the kind of speed that only a trained K9 could summon. His bark turned into a snarl, and in a flash, he leapt. The man didn't have time to scream. Max clamped down on his arm and drove him backwards into the dirt with terrifying force. Emily screamed. The other two bikers jumped the fence. And now, this wasn't a backyard. It was a battlefield. The man screamed, a sharp, guttural cry as Max's jaws sank deeper into his arm. His leather jacket offered no protection against the trained precision of the German Shepherd's bite. Blood splattered onto the grass. Emily shrieked and scrambled backward until her back hit the garden bed. Max wasn't just biting. He was holding, pinning, neutralizing the threat, like he had done so many times in his police career. But Max was older now. His back leg still bore a slight limp from an injury during his last call of duty. And while his heart was still a warrior's, his body had slowed. That didn't matter. Right now, Max was running on pure instinct. The man thrashed under him, trying to shake free, kicking violently. One boot caught Max in the ribs, but he didn't release. His grip tightened. Then, the second biker, thick-necked, short, and furious, ran forward, wielding a long chain from his belt. He didn't hesitate. He swung it. The metal struck Max's side with a sickening thud. Max yelped. The sound sliced through the air like a knife. Emily screamed again. And oh, stop! Max stumbled, letting go just long enough for the man beneath him to roll away, clutching his bleeding arm. The one with the chain raised it again, coming at Max. And that's when the door slammed open. "Get away from my daughter." Officer Daniel Parker stood on the back porch, barefoot, shirt untucked, sidearm drawn. His eyes took everything in. His daughter crouched in terror. Max hunched and limping, 3 armed men in his yard. "Get on the ground," he barked. Now, the injured biker tried to run. Daniel fired one warning shot into the ground. Dirt exploded near the man's feet. "Next one's in your leg." The man dropped to his knees, whimpering. The second biker, the one with the chain, raised it threateningly toward Daniel. "That was a mistake. Drop it," Daniel shouted. For one terrifying second, it looked like the man wouldn't. He clenched his jaw, eyes flicking between the pistol and the dog, calculating whether he could strike again before being shot. Then Max growled. Even injured, even bleeding, he took a step forward, teeth bared. The chain dropped to the grass with a soft metallic clatter. The third biker hesitated by the fence. He hadn't entered the yard yet, just stood there, eyes darting, hands raised. Daniel motioned toward the porch with the gun. "All of you on your stomachs, hands behind your heads." It wasn't the first time Daniel had held a gun, but it was the first time he'd done it in his own backyard, standing in pajama pants, with his child shaking beside the hydrangeas. "Emily," he said gently, not taking his eyes off the bikers, "go inside." She didn't move. "Sweetheart, inside." Now, she hesitated, then grabbed Max's collar and began pulling him toward the steps. Max growled once more, reluctant to back down, but obeyed. Inside, Emily collapsed into the corner of the kitchen, cradling Max's face. His fur was matted with blood, both his and the attacker's. His side rose and fell quickly. "Maxie, are you okay?" she whispered. He licked her hand. Outside, the police sirens began to wail. Daniel hadn't even remembered pressing the panic button on his phone. but the call had gone through, and backup was on its way. 20 minutes later, Elmwood Street was crawling with police cruisers, crime scene tape, and confused neighbors peeking out from behind curtains and screen doors. Officers milled about, gathering statements, cuffing the bikers, and collecting evidence. The lead officer, a tall woman named Lieutenant Carla Reyes, walked over to Daniel. "You okay?" she asked. Daniel nodded slowly, still in shock. "Yeah, I don't know how they found us, or why they came here." Reyes shook her head. "We've been tracking them since last week. They hit a place in Eugene 2 nights ago, got aggressive with a homeowner. Your name came up on a list we found, marked in red." Daniel blinked. "A list?" "Yeah, stolen from a police locker during a break-in. We think they were targeting officers. Retaliation or intimidation, maybe." Daniel's blood ran cold. He looked toward the house, toward Emily. They hadn't just stumbled onto his yard. They had come for him. "Max saved her," Daniel said, voice cracking. Reyes looked past him and nodded. "Looks like he saved all of you." Inside the house, a vet was crouched beside Max, wrapping his side with a bandage. The dog whimpered once, but didn't resist. Emily sat beside him, one hand still on his paw. The vet looked up at Daniel as he walked in. "He's hurt, but he'll be okay. Bruised ribs. No internal bleeding. You got lucky." Daniel kneeled next to Max and ran a hand through his fur. "No, we didn't get lucky. We had Max." The old shepherd licked his chin. For the first time since it began, Daniel let the tears come. The house was quiet again. Mostly, the backyard had been roped off for evidence collection, but everything else looked the same. The swing set, the flower beds, the patch of grass where Max had made his stand. Emily was tucked into bed, holding her stuffed rabbit tight. Daniel sat beside her, watching her eyelids flutter shut. "Daddy?" she mumbled. "Yes, sweetheart. Why did those men come here?" Daniel hesitated. He didn't want to lie, because sometimes bad people want to scare good people, but they didn't win. She nodded sleepily. "Because Max was there." "Yes," he whispered, "because Max was there." Downstairs, Max was curled on his favorite rug, ribs wrapped tight, a bowl of water beside him. He didn't move when Daniel approached, just wagged his tail once. Daniel sat beside him and laid a hand on his back. "I owe you everything, old man," he said softly. Max closed his eyes. The house was silent again, but now that silence felt earned. The next morning, the Parker home was quiet, but no one had truly slept. Max lay at the foot of Emily's bed, wrapped in fresh bandages, his breathing soft but steady. Emily hadn't let go of him all night. She kept her hand on his side, feeling the slow rise and fall, reassuring herself he was still there, still her protector. Downstairs, Daniel sat at the kitchen table, staring into his untouched coffee. The house still felt different, like something sacred had been invaded. The swing in the backyard swayed slightly in the wind, but it was impossible to look at it now without seeing the chaos that had happened there. The barking, the chain, the blood in the grass, and the look in those men's eyes. They hadn't come to rob. They came to send a message. That thought wouldn't leave Daniel alone. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered cautiously. "Officer Parker?" came a familiar voice. It was Lieutenant Reyes. "Yeah, you sitting down?" "I am now. I think you should come down to the station. We found something. About that list. About why you were targeted." Daniel's hand clenched around the phone. "Is my family still in danger?" "I don't know, but it's deeper than just those 3 guys." When Daniel walked into the precinct, the atmosphere shifted. Some officers nodded quietly. Others looked away. A few placed a respectful hand on his shoulder. Everyone had heard what happened. Everyone knew Max had saved his daughter's life. Reyes met him in the hallway and led him to a small conference room. On the table was a file. Thick, heavy. She opened it and flipped to a list. About 24 names. Recognizable names. Police officers, retired detectives, canine handlers, and circled in red ink. "Daniel Parker." "I don't understand," Daniel said. "We think this started over 2 years ago." Reyes began. "Remember that raid you were part of? The meth house near the train yard?" Daniel nodded. "Yeah, guy pulled a gun on us. Max took him down. Well, that guy had a brother. His name's Vince Barron. He just got out of prison 3 months ago. Word is, he's trying to build something. A crew. Revenge-driven." Daniel leaned back, jaw tightening. "So this was personal?" Reyes nodded grimly. "Your name's at the top of his list." A beat of silence. Then Daniel said, "What about the others? We've assigned protection details to everyone we can, but some are off-grid. Others don't even know they're being hunted yet." Daniel's blood ran cold. "And my family? We've posted a car outside your home, but you might want to consider relocating." At least until we get Baron in custody. Daniel didn't answer right away. His mind wasn't in the room anymore. It was upstairs, with Emily, with Max. He had moved them here for peace. After years of high-risk calls, late nights, and hostile suspects, this little Oregon town was supposed to be the safe chapter of their lives. But evil didn't care about your zip code. That evening, Daniel sat on the porch steps with Emily. The sun was setting again, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink. Max lay beside them, still healing, but watching every shadow like a soldier on duty. "Daddy," Emily asked softly, petting Max's head. "Yes, sweetie. Are those bad men coming back?" Daniel hesitated. "I don't know, but we're doing everything we can to make sure they don't." She looked down, fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. "If they do," she said, "Max will protect us again, right?" Daniel's heart clenched. He didn't want her to have to think like that. Didn't want her to expect a dog to be her shield from the world. But how could he deny it? Max had done more than any man could. "Yeah," Daniel whispered, placing a hand on Max's back. "He will." Emily leaned her head against Daniel's arm. "I think he's an angel." Daniel smiled faintly. "He's definitely something special." 3 days passed. No more intruders. No more break-ins. Just silence. Too much of it. Then Daniel received an envelope. No stamp. No return address. Just left in their mailbox. Inside was a single photo. An old one. A shot from that train yard raid years ago. It showed Daniel with Max, standing over a man in cuffs. That man's face was scratched out with red ink. Written underneath, in crude block letters, "We don't forget." Daniel stared at the picture for a long time. He didn't call it in. Not right away. Instead, he walked upstairs, opened a drawer, and pulled out something he hadn't touched in years. His old service weapon. He checked the rounds, then locked it in a case next to his bed. That night, Max whined softly in his sleep. Daniel rushed downstairs. Max was twitching, breathing hard. His bandages had slipped, revealing bruising that hadn't been there before. The vet came in again the next morning. "Internal swelling," she said. "Could have been from the chain hit. We need to monitor him closely." Emily was distraught. "Why is he hurting more now?" The vet spoke gently. "Because he protected you, and now his body is paying for it." Max nuzzled her face as if to say, "It was worth it." Daniel stood on the back porch late that night, hands on his hips, staring into the trees. He didn't want to run, didn't want to hide, but something had to change. They were targets now. Emily, Max, his entire reason for living, and somewhere out there, Vince Barron was still free, watching, waiting. He made his decision. "Tomorrow," he told Max, who stood beside him despite the pain, "we find him first." The next morning, Daniel was already awake before sunrise. He hadn't slept. Neither had Max. Though he was still limping, something had shifted in the old dog overnight. Maybe he sensed it, felt the tension in the air, the unease radiating from Daniel, the silent fury in his movements. Max's ears perked at every creak, every wind gust. He wasn't resting anymore. He was waiting. Daniel loaded a duffel bag into the truck. He wasn't just a dad now. He was a man hunting the thing threatening everything he loved. Max hopped into the passenger seat, slower than usual, but determined. They drove in silence. Every mile brought them closer to the place where it all started. That train yard. It had been years, but it looked the same. Rusting metal, graffiti on the walls, broken windows on the old depot. Daniel stepped out, Max right beside him. A part of him had hoped they wouldn't find anything, that it was just paranoia, a ghost of the past creeping back into his mind. But ghosts don't leave tire tracks. He spotted them. 3 fresh prints in the gravel, deep and recent. Someone had been here, maybe still was. Max sniffed the air, stiffened, and growled, deep and low. Daniel reached into his jacket. His service weapon felt heavy in his hands, not from the weight, but the meaning. This wasn't about justice anymore. This was about family. Inside the depot, it was dark, too quiet. Max moved ahead, slow and steady. His training kicked in, every muscle tense but controlled. They reached the back room, the one Daniel remembered clearly. The drug stash used to be hidden under a floorboard. Max pawed the same spot, then backed up. Something was wrong. Daniel crouched, listened. Then he heard it, a click, and suddenly, boom. A small flashbang detonated not far, just enough to blind, disorient. Daniel stumbled back, coughing. Max barked wildly. Then shadows moved, 3 of them, emerging from behind crates. They weren't just random thugs. They were waiting. One of them stepped forward, lean, wiry, with sunken eyes and a scar down his cheek. "Nice to see you again, Officer Parker," he said with a sneer. Or should I say, ex-officer. Daniel aimed his gun, but another flash of light hit him. A second bang. He dropped to one knee, vision spinning. "Max!" he shouted, and the dog launched. Max hit the first man like a freight train. The guy didn't even get a scream out, just slammed into the wall, arms flailing. Another man grabbed a pipe, swung at Max, but the old dog dodged and bit down hard into his leg. Then, a gunshot. Time froze. Max yelped and staggered back. Daniel, eyes blurred with tears and rage, fired. One round, straight into the shoulder of the third man, the one holding the pistol. Screams, curses, and finally silence. The room reeked of sweat, blood, and fear. Daniel crawled to Max, who was lying on his side, panting. No blood, just a graze. But he was weak, so very tired. "You stayed," Daniel whispered, stroking his fur. "You saved me again." Max looked up, eyes soft. He licked Daniel's hand once, then rested his head on his chest. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Reyes had tracked Daniel's phone, knew he'd do something risky. Backup swarmed in, weapons drawn, but it was already over. Vince Barron and his crew were on the ground, moaning. Max was still breathing, barely. Back at the animal hospital, Emily sat by Max's side once more, just like before. Tears ran freely down her face. "You don't have to protect us anymore," she whispered, burying her face in his neck. "You're safe now. You hear me, Max? You're safe." Max's tail thumped once against the bed. Slow, soft, but there. The days that followed were a mix of relief and quiet healing. Max stayed at the vet's clinic, monitored closely by doctors who had come to admire this brave dog's fighting spirit. Every breath he took was a victory, a testament to the years of loyalty and courage packed into his strong, worn body. Emily and Daniel never left his side. They took turns sitting beside him, speaking softly, reminding Max that he wasn't alone anymore. They shared stories of his incredible service, the lives he'd saved, and how he was more than just a dog. He was family. The neighborhood, once peaceful but shaken, found a new kind of respect for their four-legged hero. Max's story quickly spread beyond their small town. News outlets called him a guardian angel and a living legend. Yet for Emily, Daniel, and everyone who truly knew him, Max was simply the dog who never gave up, who protected without hesitation, and loved without limits. This isn't just a tale about a K9 dog fighting off bikers. It's a story about trust, the kind of bond that goes beyond words between a little girl and her dog. It's about bravery, not just the dramatic moments, but the quiet, steady courage of a loyal friend. And above all, it's about hope. Hope that even in the darkest moments, someone is watching over us. Sometimes, that someone has four paws, a wagging tail, and a heart bigger than most. In a world that often feels uncertain, Max reminds us what it means to stand up for those we love, not with fists or words, but with loyalty and fierce protection. His story is a powerful reminder that heroes come in all shapes and sizes, even furry, four-legged ones who never ask for praise, only to be there when it matters most. So, if you ever doubt the strength of a dog's love, remember Max, remember the quiet town, the little girl, and the bikers who didn't realize they were walking into the jaws of a legend. If you believe every dog has a hero inside, make sure to subscribe and don't miss the next incredible story.